Cath Reohorn, today's guest, is the founder of Kindness, basically. And for the last half a decade, Cath and Kind Copy has been helping businesses to get more out of their digital marketing.
Our philosophy is rather than twist a knife and magnify a problem to the point that people can't act, we just hold up a mirror. Kindness is really important because it means that the person that you're trying to sell to feels hopeful and empowered and capable of change, which in the coaching space is super important. In my opinion, the opposite of kindness is cruelty. Then coaches end up with a load of people in their programs who are not really in a good place. I feel inherently that there is something wrong about that, and I'm not going to do it. So I was a teacher, I was a psychologist for 12 years. That's a phenomenal question. And
hello and welcome back to My Kind of People, the podcast where I connect with incredible leaders and community members across the world who are doing awesome things in the world. And today's guest is most definitely my kind of person. Cath Reohorn, today's guest, is the founder of Kindness, basically. She is the founder of Kind Copy, and for the last half a decade, Cath and Kind Copy has been helping businesses to get more out of their digital marketing, and I'm so thrilled to have her here today. Welcome to the podcast, Cath.
oh, thank you for having me on, Meg. This is going to be so much fun. I'm stoked to be here.
I'm loving it. And you are the perfect podcast guest because your voice is just beautiful. It's like butter. I love your accent. It's so soft.
Oh, thank you.
It's like voice ASMR today.
I'll try to keep the swearing to a minimum then.
Yeah, no, bring it on. Swearing like butter. But thank you so much for having me on. We met a little while ago, didn't we? You helped me out with some of my marketing, getting a little bit clear about how I could talk about my business in a way that flows better and in a kind way.
That's right. And one of the reasons why I think kindness is such an integral part of any marketing, right? Like my background is in the fitness industry, but I believe this is true for every industry, particularly where you're trying to get a customer to actually be involved in the process of whatever you're selling them to do. I think without kindness, you run the risk of making yourself too much of a rescuer. And kindness is really important because it means that the person that you're trying to sell to feels hopeful and empowered and capable of change, which in the coaching space is super important. But that's important in loads of other industries as well, where you need to kind of partner with someone to guide them to a result. So kindness is pivotal. It's not, it sounds fluffy, but it really is a strategic business move to make sure that people actually are not so overstimulated that they can't take action. So I think it's a tactical move myself.
Definitely. And what would you mean for the people listening by rescuer there?
Cool. So what I mean by that, like in a coaching capacity, I would, lots of the time when somebody hires a health and fitness coach, they are almost ready to change. They know that they're aware of the problem that they've got and they're looking for someone else to support them with that. But if all of your marketing is, in my opinion, the opposite of kindness is cruelty. Right? If everything is cruel, if you lean really hard into that twist the knife energy of find the problem, magnify it, make it loads bigger, let's project how much worse this is going to be if you don't do something about this right now. I feel like that just creates this frenetic energy between the person who's selling the coaching and the person who's buying the coaching. And then they look to you because you have intentionally pushed their nervous system to absolute breaking point to make the sale.
Yeah.
And what that does is that they're like, cool, I'm helpless. So help me. And then coaches end up with a load of people in their programs who are not really in a good place to start taking action. And they need to be rescued, which means that the person is really over-reliant on the coach. And the coach is just like, oh my God, why have I got so many clingy people in my community? Like, just chill, relax. And it's because we've made that happen. And I'm talking about this from my own perspective. Like that's a mistake I made way back in the early days. But I saw so many coaches get taught this idea of find the pain point and press on it, make it so much worse. And it's such a short-sighted strategy. It's a sales strategy, but it's not a good relationship strategy. Like that just attracts people who are totally overstimulated, can't take action. That's your fault. You've done that. and then need to be rescued. So the coach becomes this almost messiah-like figure,
Yeah.
which is great for the ego and terrible for business.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you touched on relationship there because I think that is integral to it, right? That especially when you're in the coaching realm, what is that? It's a relationship between you and your client, and kindness should be at the foundation of all relationships. And how thinking about how do we want to start that relationship? Do we want to start that relationship of that imbalance, right? Like you said, almost it's one person on a pedestal, the other person below. Or do we want to be two people that are both empowered in the relationship coming together to connect, which is what we all want to do at the end of the day, right? So I so appreciate that and how you lead in that and your ability to be able to say, like, you know what, this comes from a place of I've made these mistakes myself, right? And the relationships I was welcoming it into my business and into my life. And actually, I want to be a leader and change that. I've noticed there's a different way about of going about things. And
Yeah.
I would like to create a better, more empowered foundation to my relationships.
100%. Like I would imagine lots of people listening to this have been in this position themselves. I remember coming into being a self-employed person. I left teaching and I came into being self-employed. And the thing that struck me as the most gross, like the most heinous of all of the transitional stuff. Like I'd been a teacher, so my inclination is give everything. It all belongs to us. None of this is mine. I'm just here to facilitate giving it to you, right? And I think there's a lot to be said for that as a leadership quality. When it comes to sales, though, I just felt like shit about the sales process. I felt like what was being taught at the time I was being self-employed is better now, but at the time it was like, don't let them off the phone without taking their credit card details. Like pressure, like high pressure situation where it was like, well, I need to go away and think about it. What do you need to think about? Or, "Oh, I need to speak to my wife about it. Wouldn't she want you to be happy?" It all felt like disgustingly manipulative to me. And instinctively I knew I'm just not going to do that. Like I feel inherently that there is something wrong about that. And I'm not going to do it. And if that means that I have fewer sales, then I actually don't care because that way of relating to people and pressuring them and creating this like weird like codependent just like manipulation. I was just like, this is just not the vibe. I just feel like in like morally this is wrong. What I've learned since is that there's nothing morally wrong about sales, and it's just pressuring people to do something that they're not comfortable with. There's a reason why we don't pressure people to do things they don't want to do in relationships. There's a consent issue. So in a sales dynamic, I think that same exact principle applies. I'm assuming that you're on the call because you want more information and that you're almost bought in, but there's some logistical thing that you want to know and you want to check. And I'm here to give you all the information. What do you want to know? So that informs all kinds of like transparency and feel good selling. Things like if somebody asks me how much it costs, I'll tell them. The prices of everything's on the website. I'm very pro transparency because I just think it's a logistical concern. I think it treats people like adults and you are collaborating in the best possible outcome for that person. If that's you, cool. And if that's not you, yet, that's okay as well. But yeah, I'm bullish on that. I think it's I know it's an old-fashioned word, but I just think it's a decency thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I love your bullishness on that. Like it's like we need that leadership, and I've seen it myself before I went but did my own thing as a fitness and health coach. I was actually working in sales, which you would never find me in a sales position because, like you, I hated sales. I hated the thought of it. I actually went into a gym to do a reception position because I was like, I'll do that alongside this business that I'm growing, fitness and health. And then they asked me back to be the sales and membership manager and then also run the front of house. And I was like, oh, this is not for me. I was going to be a team of one. And, but I loved the club. I
Mm.
absolutely believed in what they were selling and the atmosphere they created and the community they created. So I was like, you know what? This could be an invitation to try and do this a different way. And I almost got fired in my first week Because I had people come in to view the gym, right? And they'd come in a bit like you said. They're there and they're like, "Oh, I want to make this change, but this is the third gym that I've been to in the last year and everything keeps going wrong." So I would take them around the gym and just ask them questions of like, "Okay, well, how do we make this not
Mm.
your fourth gym? Like, what is actually going wrong?" What is it that you want to get out of this experience? And thankfully, because my knowledge in fitness and health as a coach, I could actually take them around the gym and give suggestions of like, okay, maybe this is a better place to start. So I take a lot, I'd probably do 4 times the tour length that other people would do. And at the end, they'd be there ready, like, I'm going to get my money out. Cool. I'll just sign up to whatever. I'll do silver monthly, pay monthly. And I'd say, like, you know what? I think you should go and think about it.
Yeah, 100%. Do
Right?
you know
I
what? When
just,
I worked in the gym, I did the exact same thing. And because it's quite a disarming thing to be on the receiving end of.
yeah,
The reason why it's so important to do it that way is that like I don't care if you sign up or not. Like, and this was the shift for me. Like, this was a huge moment for me. If all somebody can give you is money, that's not valuable.
yeah,
It's just money. Like once you've got a degree of skill with marketing and sales, I can make money happen. Right? That's a skill that you've got. You can just make money anywhere. What matters is that you make the right sort of money with the right sort of people who send you referrals or who can, develop, who share with you.
yeah,
You're trying to build a community of people that you can all help. And this is a strange thing about the health and fitness community where people who are on the fringes, like copywriters or graphic designers or automations people and AI people, they all seem to be quite willing to share. But coaches themselves are often quite they hoard information and they're like, I want to be a bit more secretive about it. And it's such a weird thing. Before I was a PT, well, this is way back now. I'm going way back. This is back when I was in uni, right? I had a sales job with my friend that involved calling people up on the phone to sell them mobile phone contracts for 3. This was when 3 was a brand new company, right?
yeah.
This was literally above a furniture factory. It was proper dodgy. Like I'm sure they paid us all in cash. It was all very
Yeah.
sketch. It was between the second and third year of my degree, and it was phone sales. So I hate being on the phone. I hated sales, and I hated dealing with money. So this job was such a peculiar like thing for me. I was the top salesperson for this job almost all of the time
Yeah.
because I would go like I would sell nothing in the morning. Then at lunchtime, we'd go around the corner to Weatherspoons, and I'd have just enough alcohol to make me chatty. Then I'd come back and smash all my sales in the afternoon because it was okay. So what was the problem with the current contract? Like how many kids you got? And it becomes like a conversation where you are collaborating and solving that problem with someone. Exactly like you did when people were signing up for the induction in the gym. Take your time, think about it. We don't need this as much as you need us. So I want you to feel so safe. And that's the point, right? Like the tipping point where somebody goes, okay, cool, I'm ready, I'm in. Like, cool. Are you like, do you want to sleep on it?
Yeah.
And then the whole thing, they're coming to you and they feel completely in control. So they feel really safe in this process. I think all of this, the kindness, the sales stuff, it's all about I want you to feel so safe with me that you can take your time, you can ask the questions you actually really want to ask, and you're not going to feel judged or silly or pressured or, whatever to make a decision that's not right for you. I think anybody who's good at sales probably gets that idea, but some people who maybe feel a bit uncomfortable with it, that might shift something for them, I think.
Yeah, and just remembering like we're two humans making a connection here, and right, and it was from a complete genuine place. That place, as I say, I hate sales. I can't do sales, but I wasn't. That person walking in was just a person. I wasn't like, oh, here's my next sale. I still
Mm.
couldn't tell you now what each sale was worth. There was a hierarchy. For me, I was like, oh, here is an opportunity to connect with the person who has come in. I absolutely believe that we have solutions in this building to help this
Mm.
person. And I truly love fitness and health. That's why I've gone into coaching because I love doing that. And I was like, it ended up being one of the best jobs for me because I saw thousands of people across the year who I could almost coach in a way and help them.
Mm.
But the person would be ready with their card out, ready to go. And I'd be like, you know what? Like, go and think about it. There's a lot of information today. I don't want us to be your fourth gym this year and then fifth, sixth. I want this to be a decision that you feel really good about. So go away and think about it. And that first week, my boss was like, we need to speak. Like, that person had their card, literally seemed put out that you'd said, I said, well, I didn't say no. I said to think about it. And I said, look, if at the end of the week, I've made a bad decision here and these people I've scared them away, they've not come back. I said, then I'll leave myself because this is not the job for me. If I have to do it this way and I'm rushing people, then it's not going to work out anyway. So you won't have any difficulties. I'll see myself
I
out.
tell you what, mate, I bet that gym had zero refunds, no issues, no complaints. I bet they loved that process. I bet everybody who signed up to the gym bought whatever else was available, like classes or PT or whatever other like add-ons, because they felt like they were making the decision themselves. And I just think it's such a peculiar thing that that doesn't seem like the default for most sales processes. And it's no wonder people feel so bloody uncomfortable doing it. Like, of course you don't want to do it. You don't want to, nobody wants to pressure something into something they're not ready for. And lots of the time, if they come and they're like, oh, I'm 80% there, but I do have some questions. My pet hate is like, cool, let me let me obscure all of my answers to this
Yeah.
question rather than just give you a straight answer. I'm just like, oh my God, I that would piss me off so much, and that would be like, I'm not going to buy anything from you just because you won't give me a straight answer. That's how you talk yourself out of a sale, I think. So yeah, I'm with you. I bet you were the best, perfect person to be in that role because it doesn't feel like a sales process.
Yeah, and it felt like a great job for me, and I would never have imagined that because, as I
Mm.
say, sales I would have absolutely ran away from when they first offered it to me. I was like, this is not going to go. But again, it's like, again, how do you see things and flip things around? And actually, what I would say is like we would get complaints, which is a great thing because that makes us better because we've created that relationship at the start of, like, again, like you said, with that whole kindness with our copy and how we market things is creating a relationship, building a foundation where we have that authenticity, we have that honesty. So I actually loved that from the start. I'd create a relationship and I'd say, like, you know, if there's anything you're not happy with, if there's anything you're confused with, like, just because I've helped sign you up today, come find me if you can't find someone on the gym floor, and I want to hear it. I want this, I want to make this place a great place for you. I want this to be an awesome part of your fitness and health journey. So we would get complaints from time to time, but they'd always actually, I'd be like, you know what, fair. Yeah, you
Yeah,
know
and
that,
they're blind spots often. They're
yeah,
things that you don't see when you're in the business. What's nice about this is when you're open to that, like when it's not your personal business,
yeah,
it's easy to receive those complaints. I think sometimes when it's you in it, you're like, I feel a bit prickly about that because I saw all of the decision making that went into why we do it this way. But the ultimate thing, Meg, is that you said it, we have solutions in this building.
yeah,
And that, like the mission there was above everything for you. And that's why you were able to take the complaints and because you believe in the product, right? I think lots of the time if you feel like the marketing is like you're trying to force the marketing or the sales process feels a bit sticky or whatever, sometimes all it comes down to is, are you 100% on board that this is the best possible like version of this product that it can be? Are you actually like excited to sell it? Because I think that tends to be my metric. Anytime I launch a new service or a new product or whatever, I'm like, how excited am I? Because half
mm,
the time you'll have seen this, like we follow each other, you've seen me do this. I've got a half-baked idea. I go off half-cocked at something and I'm like, oh my God, do you think this guys, do you think this could work? And I'm just so buzzing about it. I think people buy into my enthusiasm and they buy the thing, and I'm like, I haven't made it, mind. Like none of this is made, and they're like, no, 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 no. Like you're psyched that it's going to work, so it's going to work, and I think that's like incredibly true. So your excitement is the thing that people buy into, and it's easy to forget that when it's your like you're in the grind of your business, and you're like, I need to make sales. I need to like it can feel like work, but when it starts to feel like, oh my God, I've just learned this thing and I can't wait to give it to you. Like again, that's that teaching angle, right?
yeah.
It feels just like an exciting thing. I learned something the other day. I learned about how I could use AI to read loads and loads of like exported chats, like on WhatsApp or on Discord or whatever, going back years. And I was like, I have good social proof, but I feel like it's not all in one place.
Yeah.
So I exported all that stuff and I fed it to AI, and then AI organized it for me. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, because I'm quite, as a copywriter, I'm just like, AI is trash for this.
Yes.
Um, but it was brilliant at that. And I wrote down all the steps. I was like, you guys, I've just discovered this thing. Let me give it to you. Like, so it's like a lead magnet, I suppose. But really, it was just, I learned this thing. I thought it was so useful. I've used that document so many times since as well. Um, it was a piece of piss. And I was just excited to share that with people and give that away and see other people use it as
Yeah.
well. And I think it's just that enthusiasm, right?
100%. And I think AI is such an interesting topic at the moment, right? It's a thing that a lot of people can fear. And like you say, like as a copywriter, you're like, no, AI, go away. But actually, I think it's remembering that what is foundational to us, and it comes back to that relationship piece, right? No one actually can be us humans on the relationship side of things and how we build connections with people. And that
Totally.
is, for me, all about what business is about. If you want to create a good business, it's like, how do I create strong relationships? And then welcoming AI to do the organizing and the stuff that
The
us humans,
maths.
yeah, the maths, the
Getting to do
stuff
all
that
the
us
maths.
humans aren't so good at, right? But the one thing they can't replace is the relationships, the foundation building.
Completely agree with you. I remember when like when I was a gym floor PT, lots of people would talk about, oh, this online coaching stuff is gonna there's always something that's gonna swallow your industry. Like there's always some big bad. I actually think we need that, like psychologically. I think it's important for us as humans to feel, to perceive that there is something snapping at our heels. I think it encourages growth. I think it encourages iteration. It keeps us sharp, stops us from becoming complacent, and it allows us to double down on the thing that is the most important, which is the relationships, because nothing can ever replace that. Um, yeah, and that's the connection piece that I think would be the biggest shame if we lost that.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Any outside threat gets you to really think like, what am I good at though? What
Yeah,
am I
what
best
matters?
at? What's our USP? A bit same at when I used to work at the club that I worked at before. I'd have customers asking, "Oh, are you concerned? I see there's planning pr approval potentially for this other gym coming in nearby." And I just said, not really. Because the thing that we can't be beaten on is community. That is
Mm.
all about what this club is about. We're built on community. You see it in how our memberships are formed. You see it in the activities we put on in the classes. So there is another gym coming. If there's people that want to do shift work and they want the gym open at all hours or they want a scaled back thing, no problem. If you want a really fancy swimming pool at site, we've got another major competitor down the road. I recommend that there. But actually, what we are best at is community and welcoming people of all backgrounds, all shapes and sizes. And actually, that's what we're good at. So no, I'm not worried about that. Actually, that reinforces we need to talk about that more.
100%. I actually think one of the you hit on it there. One of the most powerful things you can do is if you're looking for this thing, if you're looking for a swimming pool, you should go there. They've got a lovely pool. And being familiar enough with your competitors, not being scared to look at what they do and just think, what are they really good at? So I can refer them.
Yeah.
So, if you really want to learn to, I don't know, swim or you want to learn to rock climb, you're not going to get that here. But I recommend and go and speak to so and so because they're a lovely person. Tell them I sent you.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff is. I don't know why that doesn't happen more. I think there's a real scarcity, but that doesn't serve anyone. Even if that was true, it doesn't serve you to believe that. So simply believing that there's more than enough business to go around. Sometimes there's enough to shift. Like you can't have everybody in the world belong to your gym. So
No.
it's got to be other gyms. Like that's nice. That's a great position to be in.
Yeah, 100%. I was able to go, if you're a really strong swimmer, you want a 50-meter pool, go there. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful, brand new made council run. However, if you want to learn to swim, you can put your feet down no matter where you are in our pool. And that is, and if you are rehabbing, you can put your feet down no matter where you are in our pool, because that is what we're about. We want the whole community here. We want the people that actually normally wouldn't be able to swim. You can come to our pool and you can confidently learn to swim. If you
That would be
can't
funny
do,
because I never did learn to swim. I would
yeah, right. But you could still be in the pool. You could do some exercises up and down. If you want to be in the gym right now, but you feel left out because you're having to rehab for exercise, come do that in our pool
yeah,
because
super
we
nice.
want the whole
Welcome.
community here. Yeah.
One.
So yeah, I definitely think that and that comes from that really having confidence, knowing in what you're selling, and also creating those relationships, not being scared to connect and be honest. And that's what I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about um people wanting to buy from you and sharing about your stories about what you've learned. I think a key piece there was that transparency, because not only have they got to know you and what you're selling, but also there's that transparency of you were very honest of like, by the way, this is only half built, just so you know,
I
right?
haven't even started building.
Yeah, maybe
It's
not
not even
full
1%
transparency
built,
then.
but thank you for the generosity.
Right, but it's that ability to be
And
able
it's
to
built now,
say,
isn't
I've
it?
not got the finished product,
Yeah,
but I'm actually going to show you part of the journey and where I'm at and what I'm doing with it.
totally, totally. And also, like, how cool, like, I remember, like, when people did buy it then, I sold something like 70 spaces and I hadn't written a single word. And I was updating them in the Discord group. I was like, just so you know, I'm just starting to write now. Thank you so much for like, what a huge show of faith
Yeah.
and the strength of our relationship that you've bought on the basis of I've just said this is going to bang and you've believed me. Like I think that's super cool. It's so important to me that like you wouldn't do that in cold traffic.
No.
Like you would not be able to do that with strangers. So having that relationship with your audience, your long-term relationships, where you just talk to people on a regular basis. You know, I'm bullish about DMs, all that
Yeah.
type of thing, and actually genuinely connecting with people outside of business as well, just about stuff that you think is interesting and cool. I think that's really, really important.
Most definitely. And so how do you think you've got to that position, right? You've got 70 people in your Discord group that have got so much faith in you that you've not even written a word yet, and they're like, I want your product. How, like, where does that relationship building start for you? Take us a little bit back on your journey of maybe how you started things and how you've built what you've got to now.
When so I was a teacher, I was a psychologist for 12 years, and I got made redundant twice. And I was like, frankly, this is just fucking bullshit, honestly. I'm over that. And it's just absolute bullshit. It seemed crazy to me that I could have a professional career and somebody else could make one decision and my whole career disappears. I'm just like, interesting. No, I reject that.
Yeah.
So the first time I was so injured by that, I was like, oh my God, I'm obviously a terrible teacher. I'm like, I've done something wrong. My like course numbers must be down. Like I must be not bringing in enough students or whatever. And then the second time I was like, okay, no, you've just mismanaged your funds. Um, because courses are running here with one student. Like I was in a private school, so courses would run with one student,
Wow.
and my course is packed. Like we've literally had to carry in chairs from somewhere else. So it's not that. I really thought it was that the first
Yeah.
time. So I left. I was like, I at the time I'd lost around about 8.5 stone, and I had really got into training and fitness. I joined a CrossFit gym as well, and as well as another gym. And I was just exploring. I was just having fun and playing with it. And I thought it was so fun to like, because I'd never been the fit kid in school. I'd always been like basically skiving off smoking, if we're honest. So it was so fun to have this part of my life that I could access, and I wanted to help other people have that as well. So I was a gym floor PT for a good couple of years. And I knew for 1 year that I was going to get made redundant. So I had a whole year to like build up my personal training business. I didn't have to say yes to every person that inquired. I didn't need the money because I had like a salary from my other job. And then I had a small redundancy payout. It wasn't crazy, but it was enough to not put the thumb screws on and be like, you have to sell today. And as a result, I was like, I just realized that this process of like, you've got to be cool with me and I've got to be cool with you. The relationship, like in my head at the time, I called it the dickhead test, and I was like, you've got to pass the dickhead test for me, and I've got to pass the dickhead test for you. Meaning, if we're going to spend at least an hour together for the next, an hour a week for the next year, you've got to at least not dread that time. And I think the only time I ever referred another client to somebody else was I think I'd been stood up by them twice and I was like, that just pisses me off. So I'm just gonna like, I don't want you as a client. But that almost never happened.
Yeah.
Um, we had great classes. So I was fully booked. By the time I was redundant, I actually get made redundant. I was like 80% there. So I was like, this feels pretty safe. Um, and then gyms closed. And I actually actually happened was that my dad died.
Oh,
And he died in November, and I just went back to work the next day.
goodness
I,
me.
I was like, I'm going to train 3 times a day. I'm not going to feel any of this. This is all too big.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna crush, and I'm gonna, keep working, keep training, ignore the feelings. And then it got to about February, and I got so ill. I worked through Christmas Day. I'm blinkers on. I'm ignoring this, right?
Yeah.
Came to the last week of February and I got flu and I had never felt so ill in my life. So this is like February 2019. Got flu for 2 whole weeks and it put me to bed. And the whole time I'm lying in bed, Meg, I'm like, shit, 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 shit. I can't earn any money. And because I'd been a teacher and I like, if you're ill, you just get paid, whatever. Um, I never had that before, and I got quite scared about it. And I thought, I need to have some way that I can keep myself financially safe that doesn't involve me being on the gym floor. So I thought I'll become an online coach as well as a PT. I loved being a PT. And my clients were classmates. Like they were so fun. Like we had such a laugh together. Um, but I knew that that wasn't like safe, didn't feel safe. So I started to learn this skill of copywriting just so I could take my business online, really. I never meant to do that for anybody else. I just wanted to do that for me and make myself feel financially safe. Then I got paid to write for somebody else for the first time. And I was like, this is tits. Like I can do this in my pajamas. Like I loved that I could do it in my pajamas. Um, that was in February of 2020, and then gyms closed in March. So I was like, I have roughly a year, like
Yeah.
not like almost a year of practice. Didn't have any clients, I was just practicing for myself. And then gyms closed, and I was like, thank God I've got some money coming in from somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the context of how that came about. So when it came to like working for other people, I'd sort of, you write stuff just to help people out. Like that, it was literally, I write this for you to help you out. Write a little social media post, write a little playbook, write a little strategy, write a little email, write a blog, like for some people, write some websites, and then it kind of grew and grew. And because I had already sort of like proven that what I did worked,
Yeah.
people believed me when I said the next thing I do will work as well. And it did. So I suppose goodwill, a little bit of luck,
Yeah.
definitely some luck in there. Some goodwill, lots of hard work, and good relationships. And all of my stuff was built on organic marketing until I want to say like until this year.
Yeah.
Like I am running ads right now, but hardly anything at all. Like we spend next to nothing on ads considering we're a marketing agency.
Yeah.
And all of the stuff, all of the people who buy from me, I realized this last week and I thought it was absolutely gas. Almost 100% of my sales come from people who have already bought from me before,
That's incredible.
which is wild. That makes me feel so proud because obviously the stuff that we're doing for people is working really well for them and they come back and they buy something bigger or they buy something else. And that's important to me. So relationships, I think, is the short answer. The too long didn't read version. Um, Talking to people who are sound and having good relationships with them, not being a shit house and doing what you said you would do.
Yeah, I love that. And you should be proud. Like that is what an achievement that you can build a business with people that just want to keep coming back. And so just for people who are maybe not in the know, how would you define organic marketing?
So organic marketing is anything that you post on the internet that you haven't paid somebody else to like show someone. So like an example of paid marketing would be an ad or like an influencer shout out or anything where you've paid some money for someone to be shown your stuff. Organic marketing is that you haven't paid anything. You've just put in time, like sweat equity, they call it, isn't it? But like we just
Yeah.
used to call it posting on the internet. And the people come to you because they like what you talk about. That's it.
Amazing. And I love how you talked about like it's built off not only relationships with other people, but I also think the relationship you've had with yourself sounds like it's grown so much over that time, going from the death of your father, which I'm so sorry to hear about that, but going from like, I'm gonna completely run away from my feelings, don't want to like, which understandable, right? That must be so big at the time. But actually, I'm going to completely disconnect from that and myself, then actually being aware of the impact that's had on you and that to have that strong sense of self of, no, I don't want this for myself. I'm
Mm.
actually quite scared of this. I realize the mess I've got into and how that's showing up in my body. And I'm actually going to choose something different. And that strong sense of self to be able to keep saying no and to keep saying, like, you know what, I'm going to give myself this time. I know I have a year before my
Yeah.
redundancy. I'm going to actually take this time for me and I'm going to have the patience and I'm going to keep showing up and I'm going to keep developing this skill. And then the same when you got to the lockdowns of, you know what, this doesn't feel good. I'm noticing that I'm actually quite scared. I'm realizing that how vulnerable I am and
Mm.
I want to choose something different for myself. So again, I'm going to choose to take this time for me and actually build up this relationship, allow myself to practice and fail and get used to something and have fun with something. And also that relationship to self of like, what do I enjoy doing? What am I
100%.
excited about?
Do you know what I think is really important about this whole process is being willing to be shit at stuff for a while. Like,
Yeah.
because I've come from a teaching background, I I know I'm quite a good student.
Hmm.
So I'm pretty sure like I could learn something from anyone because even if like they're not a good teacher, I'm a good enough student that I can help you to teach me. I can ask good questions. I can structure my own learning in this,
Yeah.
right? And when it comes to learning a new skill, I really like the feeling of being a beginner. And I think that's a bit of a competitive advantage because I really don't mind if I look stupid.
Yeah.
I really don't care. I actually kind of like it if I'm honest. So things like I remember there's a point for me where I become competent at something and then I get bored. So I'm heavily ADHD.
Me
So
too.
I'm
I
cool
relate.
with being like I want something new, I want something new.
Yeah.
And then when I become competent, I'm like, the dopamine has dried up. I kind of don't give a shit anymore now. So what was funny was like this happened with so many things. Like this happens for hobbies for me. This happened like I'm going to learn like photography was a big one for me. I got to the point where I could shoot a wedding and then I was like,
Never
I can't
mind.
be asked this now.
Yeah.
Or
I hope
like
you did the wedding first
I did do the
before
wedding
you made
first.
that
Yeah, I
decision.
did a couple. I was like, this is
Day
fucking
off.
awful.
Sorry,
This is
dopamine's run
horrendous. I hate this. I bought all this equipment. I was like,
Yeah, just wanted to
Um,
see if I could, but have a good
yeah.
day.
Yeah, yeah. Congratulations, guys. Nice one. Uh, like weightlifting was another one. Like I got to my, level two weightlifting qualification with an Olympian, and I'm like,
Wow.
I'm I'm an okay weightlifter now,
Yeah.
and I feel like I haven't weightlifted since. And like, it's like one of those, you rabbit hole something, right? Um, so I quite like the sensation of being a beginner, and I quite like because I like that rapid progress. There's something dopaminergenic about learning something. Um, but with that, you become moderately competent at lots of things, and you rarely master anything. It has to be something really special for you to want to master it. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I'm there with a copy. I'm on the way anyway.
Jack of all trades, master of fun. That's what I say.
Master of fun. That's cute. I like that.
So you said that you think you're quite a good student. You love being a student. So who are the people that you've loved learning from? Have you had any mentors along the way
Ah,
that you've
great
that really
question.
inspired you?
Yeah, so my first copywriting mentor was a guy called Mike Samuels, who everybody in the copywriting space knows this name. Um, Absolutely love Mike. Literally changed my life. Like introduced me to this idea of earning money remotely. It was so funny, Meg. I bought that course. At the time I bought it, his course was called the Freedom Kickstarter, and I spent something like 1,200 and something pounds on this course. And at the time I had my notebook, right? And I was like, money spent on course, like whatever, £1,000 or whatever. Money earned from writing every month, and I
Yeah.
total it up, zero, nothing.
Yeah.
For like a whole year, nothing, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing, zero, zero. So I'm still in the hole. I was like, because I know I can chase rabbits,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not going to learn another fucking thing until you have earned your money back from that course, right? No more courses. My mother used to call me a course slut. She'd be like,
Yeah.
you're hopping around from course to course, use them. So I remember the first month I got paid something like £200, and I could like minus it off the amount that I'd paid on my
Yes,
for my course. I was like, oh my
finally.
God, it's happening.
Redemption.
It's only taken a year, but it's happening. And then like it was happening again and again and again until I made the money back. And I remember messaging Mike about that, and I was like, hey, I've just letting you know, I just paid off the course from money from writing. And everything from this point on is profit.
Mm,
And he was buzzed for me. Like, he's such a nice guy. If you don't know Mike Samuels, go and check him out. He's an absolute gangster. Runs like 100 miles for fun. He's obviously tapped. Poor sad twat. So we've got that going on. After Mike, I learned from, I've had some business mentors. Some of them have been fucking charlatans, honestly. Some of them
yeah,
have been absolute life-changing people, humans who have massively impacted my family. Shout out for Phil Graham. I was part of that team for a long time. I resigned from that team about a year ago.
yeah,
For some family stuff I had to focus on. But life-changing to be part of a team that operates at that level. And I think there is definitely a movement towards being business mentoring that is genuinely focused on transformative experiences for people rather than just get as much money as you possibly can, which I
yeah,
felt like it was when I first came into the space. So that was important to me. I've learned from Alan Sultanich, who's probably the most intelligent human who's ever lived and is frighteningly intelligent. Chris Ozzy, like big shout out to Chris. But there've been so many people, Sometimes you'll read a post from another coach and you think, fuck, that's so smart. I've never heard it talked about like that. And I think one of the best skills you can learn if you're interested in marketing is just noticing.
yeah,
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a big formal training with loads of learning. I think I've paid for this course from, a business mentor, so I'm going to learn how to set up Stripe. Like
yeah,
that's not the stuff. It's I read something and I can't stop, and it's 2 days later and I'm still thinking about it.
yeah,
Or I read something from somebody else and it made me cry, and
yeah,
it was only 130 characters. How did you do that? So noticing where those things are happening in your life is probably the most important thing, because you're being educated all of the time, literally all of the time. If you're open to it,
yeah,
it's there for you, and it doesn't have to cost you anything. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be like a big sit down. I'm going to go to this lecture hall. It is literally happening all of the time if you are open to being a student. And I think that's one of the best gifts. I actually think it's one of the most notable marks of intelligence is that somebody is open to learning stuff from everywhere,
yeah,
and everybody can teach you something.
yeah. And you explained a bit now how you fell into the marketing space, or instead of fell, you chose to go into that, and more the reason of like, oh, I can have this security, I can, work from home, do this for myself. And you've also mentioned, the people that you've learned from along the way, and also the fact that you can be a bit of a course slut, right? Maybe.
Absolutely.
So what is it about marketing that's made you stay? We know how you got there. We know that, you love diving down. What stops you from hopping on to the next thing here? What is it that sucked you in?
That's a phenomenal question. And I have noticed that there is a common theme with the things that actually hold my attention.
Yeah.
It's not complete free for all creativity. It's not that. It's creativity within constraints. So when I was really into photography, for example, there are only a handful of variables that you can change on a camera.
Mm,
So you're playing with light and there's a creative process, but you can't create anything. Like painting is too open, too creative. There's too much choice. There are creative constraints that exist in the camera that make it interesting enough. There's a mix of art and science happening there. It's basically physics, isn't it? It's just a
yeah.
box of physics, really. Um, and that way of looking at it, I think, is it appeals to my brain because there's something to learn that you have to manipulate these variables. Similarly with marketing, you can write whatever you want,
Yeah.
but there are only so many ways that you can pull the levers and create more money out of the words you write. It will never not be cool that you can write virtual words and send them on the internet to virtual people who you've never met on the other side of the world and receive virtual money that you can take out of the bank and spend on real things. Like that blows my brain. And
Is
there's
this
only
real
so
life?
many things that you can change.
Yeah.
Really, there are creative constraints in terms of the creative, the thing like the actual photo, for example, or the video script, or the headline, or the call to action. There's only so much you can change. So treating each piece as an individual variable is probably the constraint that appeals to me. And then tinkering to make sure each of them are as good as they can be. That's the creative piece, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. It's actually very similar. I used to be within the stand-up improv comedy world and like actually improvisation. And that's something I loved because people would look at that and I loved the creativity of it. It was you never know what the input was going to be from the audience. They could say whatever. However, the reason it works is there is actually a set of rules and constraints that you have to go to. So even though on stage it is like improv, right? It's improvised and there's that excitement of every audience member, every suggestion brings something new to the table. How improv actually is good and worked is you are still working within a certain set of variables to make it work. So
Yeah,
that really
100%.
resonated with me with the marketing.
It's strange, isn't it? And I think those constraints, lots of people look at that and think that's going to make me less creative, though.
Yeah,
But it actually doesn't because because if I said to you, what's the best album of all time? That's quite hard to think about because there's so many things that you could choose. And as you
yeah,
think of one, you think of 10 more, right? And you're like,
yeah.
oh, fuck. Like, do you know when you read a book and then there's like 10 more books you want to read after every single book? And you're like, I'm
Yeah,
never going to read all the books I want to read because every book spawns a bunch more books.
yeah,
But if I said to you, what's the best album you've actually owned on CD from a band that you have seen live?
yeah,
You'll be able to answer that question much more easily because there's a constraint on you
yeah.
and it channels your thinking. And I think when you can think within those creative parameters, it actually makes you more creative because you're not overwhelmed and swamped with information. So you can be a bit more you're refined in your thinking and then you can be generous in your output.
Yes, exactly that. And the same with improv. I think it also allows you to feel a sense of safety. When you
Yes.
feel that sense of safety, you're able to relax because you're like, like no matter what, I'm going to be caught here, right?
Mm.
I actually have, I have backup here, and that allows you to let yourself be loose, allow that because that's the thing. You can't I think to have you can't have creativity without safety, right? Otherwise you're coming from this place of lack, this place of desperation, this place of need, and that turns it into something else. But when you are in that feeling of safety, it allows you to actually then take, as I say, with work within those constraints and be creative and be like, cool, how can we actually play with this? What can we create out of this?
I love that you said that actually, because that's actually a really important thing for any business owner that's doing their own marketing. If you feel like things are scarce or urgent, or that you don't feel safe, usually because of money or but for whatever reason, but most of the time in my experience, that's because of money. But you're also doing your own marketing. That's why it feels like such a heavy burden to do that yourself, is because you can't be creative when you're thinking about a bunch of mundane shit like gas bills. You have to be able to have enough safety in your business, in your spending, in your cash flow, in your whatever, so that you can let loose a little bit. And I think the mistake that lots of people make is that they think that this is a purely scientific process where they're like, I post on the internet and then the money comes.
Mhm.
But that isn't how it works. That if there's no soul in the stuff that you're putting out there, if there's none of you in there, if there's not enough you in there, then there's not enough connection, and then there's no creativity, and then something is missing, and you won't be able to put your finger on it. But it's just spark, I guess. I don't know, whatever it is. It's the missing piece that takes somebody from okay, I read that and that was useful to oh my God, I've got to speak to this person right now.
Yeah, the way I describe it is it's like that's nice, and then
Mm.
oh, that's me.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and as I say, like it's a privilege to be able to come from a place of safety and put yourself in that position. But and I've been there before. I've noticed it myself. Whenever I feel like I'm surviving,
Mm.
right? It's when you feel like you're surviving, it's hard not to come from anywhere but from a place of lack and desperation, right? And also it will be closed-mindedness because all you can see is like, right, how am I gonna put food on the table. I can only see what's in front of me. When
Mm,
you can get to that place where you're actually more thriving, you actually can be then more open-minded. You can have that creativity and play. But when
mm.
you're surviving, there's not really much room for play and creativity.
Yeah, you got it exactly spot on.
Yeah. And so we've gone along your journey of how you got to marketing, why is it stayed. So my question for you is why kind copy? You've only had two words for your business and it's kind copy. What does kindness mean to you?
Kindness in this practice is about not being cruel. It's not being nice. People see kind copy and think, oh, this is going to be a bunch of soft cock copy. It's not that. It really isn't that. Please don't think that we're not direct. We really are. This is really about we don't. So, our philosophy is rather than twist a knife and magnify a problem to the point that people can't act,
Hmm.
we just hold up a mirror. So, we show them the problem as it actually is, no worse, no better. And when we talk about the problems in someone's life, in their business, in wherever we're solving the problem, it is just a case of we are treating the person with dignity and the problem with respect. Not with fear. We're not making it out to be some big bad monster worse than it is. We're holding up a mirror and seeing it for what it is, because then you can actually solve the problem properly, not overreact, not underreact. And it's really about not making, taking someone who's vulnerable and treating them cruelly. For us, this is about decency. And we're really big on that, a respectful relationship where people are treated properly. Um, and the copy part is because front and center of everything we do, that's about writing um, and communicating with words in a way that is intentional, in a way that is designed. It's not haphazard. We don't say things we don't mean. Every word is properly considered. Before it leaves the cave, the copy cave is where we write. This is the copy cave. Everything is checked. We actually, like most of our copy, especially that's intended to be scripts, we perform.
Mm.
So we'll do a read through like an actor would do a read through. So we'll actually perform the copy before it leaves so that we can be sure there's no snags, there's no cruelty, there's no repetition, there's nothing that people stumble over. This is we have chosen exactly the right words to
Yeah.
have the response that we want. It's not left to chance, and we are diligent about that.
I love that. And I love that tip as well. Great tip. Perform those words and make sure it's actually
Mm.
coming across how you want to. But yeah, so kindness and coming from that place of decency, intention, and respect. I really, really, I respect that. I enjoyed that and appreciate that. So to round things off, I've got two questions for you in that if someone is coming, they've heard you today and they're like, oh my goodness, I love this. Like, I actually would like to dabble in marketing myself and also like actually explore more of the copy world. So, if someone was wanting to start their journey in copywriting, what tips would you have for that person?
I think tip number one would be notice when you see good copy. And in my opinion, good copy is anything that you read all the way through. So if you've read an email from start to finish and you haven't skipped any of it, if you've watched an advert all the way through and you're still thinking about it afterwards, if you've read something in a newspaper and you've shared it with somebody else, like pay attention to the stuff that occupies your mind. That's probably the completely free and you can do that immediately. The next thing I would encourage people to do is to actually write. And by write, I mean make something, right? So that like if you want to dabble in marketing and you want to do that in a visual way, that's cool. I say writing just because I write, but if that's speaking on camera every day, in my mind, that's kind of writing because you've written a script. So do something every day and pay attention to how it feels to do that. And the third thing I would encourage you to do is this is hard, and I'm going to say this knowing that you're probably not going to do this. When you publish something, have an objective in mind. So the purpose of this post is to get people to send me a message. The purpose of this post is to get people to like the post. The purpose of this, podcast is to have people listen all the way to the end, for
Yeah,
example. Did it actually? So set the intention first
yeah,
and then write or perform the thing and then check, did it actually work?
yeah.
Because for probably the first 2 years, I would publish stuff every day, but I didn't publish with any sort of intent in mind. I was just like, I just want to get better at writing. And if I could have done that earlier in the process, I think I would have become better faster.
Mm. I love that advice. Thank you. And so that's one side, right, of amazing tips for anyone who wants to get started on the copywriting side. And I think you've already blurred it already, but what advice would you give for someone who's on the business side? So like myself, small business owner who actually want to get themselves out there or want to do that marketing. Have you got any advice for that, how they can actually improve that side of things?
Yeah, 100%. I would say number one, don't try to fit yourself into an expectation of the way that this should look. One of the things I made a mistake doing this last year. I did 100 days of reels. I hate being on video. And so I thought I'm going to conquer this fear and I'm going to do 100 days of reels.
Hmm.
And by the end of it, I did hate being on video less, but I still don't feel like this is a good use of my time, right? So I
Yeah.
spent that time, I was like, what the fuck was the point of that? So I wanted to like improve like a low end skill. Number one, fit yourself into whatever medium you feel most comfortable with. So if that's writing, write more. If it's being on video, be on video more. Whatever works for you is absolutely valid. Second thing is stop trying to do more of the things that you're mediocre at and do way more of the things that you're amazing at. So I was trying to fix a bottom end skill there, and I was
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's useful to a degree, but if I'd spent that time writing, sales pages or ads, it probably would have been more useful, right? So I probably would double down on the things that you like and that you're good at. Um, yeah, and I would stick with have an idea about what you want this piece of marketing or copy to do for you, so that you've got rather than just feeling like you're making stuff for the sake of making stuff, you've got a clear idea about how this actually ties into relationships, revenue, audience, building authority, starting conversations, booking calls, so that you've got that measure first, and then you can measure against your line. I would say but that's hear that knowing that that's actually quite a tall order, and I didn't fucking do that for the first like 3 years I
Yeah.
was writing. So I'm not saying that to be like smug or anything, because that's quite a hard thing to do.
Yeah, but amazing advice. Thank you. And I appreciate that you've taken one for the team there as well, actually giving advice of like, you know what, I didn't do that at the start, but from where I am now, I wish maybe I had. So hopefully that can help some people on their journey. And it kind of brings us back full circle to what we were talking about earlier on in the conversation of like, use this competition, use these questions to actually remind yourself of what am I good at? Where is my uniqueness? And how can I actually double down on those things instead of focusing on all the stuff that I'm not good at and where I lack?
1,000,000% agree.
So it all comes together. Well, thank you so much for the energy you brought onto the call today, the buttery voice, even with even the swear words just rolled off the tongue and sounded amazing. And you've just given so much valuable insight and advice. So for anyone listening that absolutely loves what you're throwing down today, Kath, how can they find you? How can they follow, support, find more about what you're putting out into the world?
I spend most of my time on Instagram. You'll find me on all social media platforms, but Instagram's probably my main. I'm Kind Copy UK. Come and say hi. Give me a follow. I don't post anything like as often as I should. But I am on there every day, and it is just me and my DMs. So if you want to drop by and have a chat, I would love that.
I can vouch for this. I'm in Kath's DMs. It's absolutely her, and she brings great chat. So definitely slide into her DMs and yeah, feel that kindness that she's thrown out into the world. So
Nice.
thank you so much for your time, Kath. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for being my kind of person.
Mega. Thanks for having me on. Thanks, pal.